Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we're going to be checking out some more tracks from an act named Herman Martinez. And if we switch over to here, we've got the album art on the screen for continuity errors. I have reviewed a bit of Herman's stuff over the last little while. I've reviewed Delayed Scenes initially, and then I also reviewed Siren's de facto protagonist and One Hit Wonder. Herman has released a few albums, and I'm glad that this is the case because he's an exceptional songwriter musician. And I'm not saying that because I feel obligated to, just the experiences that I've had with Herman have been generally positive. We're going to be listening through 6 more of Herman's tracks today across the last 2 albums as I understand it. The Glide, Secret Identity, Paracosm, Dutch Tilts, some New Beautiful Nightmare, and Man from Tailred. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that. I've also been provided with lyrics so that I can understand what's going on. So we're going to listen through each of these tracks from start till finish, and we're going to hear what you think. Let's go, starting with The Glide. Nice combination of the acoustic, or the steel string, and the lead elements. I like the chromaticism here, it's a charming touch. Okay, this is incredibly unsettling at this point. I'm not sure how I feel about it musically. Again, we've got lyrics, so I'm listening to the story. Don't get me wrong. It's just that we've got lyrics to back it up in between the tracks. So because of that, this review could be a little bit longer, but that's fine. Effectively, there's just a sense of dread that I'm getting from The Glide. It starts so sweetly with those twin guitar parts kind of connecting with each other, and then you get this existential dread. It's the dread, you know? This is sort of, it's very progressive, isn't it? This progressive rock kind of tonality to this, with these interesting sort of time signature changes and the adjustments to the groove there, and these strings and other interesting tones to those drum kits. There's some kind of unusual filtering going on with the sound of those that I don't necessarily dislike. I think it's cool that we're experimenting here. I think that's the future of music, isn't trying new things. At the same time, I feel myself trying to get a sense of direction with this to understand what it is and why it exists. The mixing is phenomenal though, the production is really impressive, so well done on that front. Everything's glued nicely together, there's a nice overall compression on the master chain. Even that unusual, that kind of snare tone there works, and I'm not quite sure why it works, but it does. I think it's because it's so well balanced with everything else that it seems like a part of that sort of woven tapestry. It's like when you have a new flatmate and you're just getting used to them. You're not quite sure what they're going to throw at you, but you're like, okay, this is okay for now. Okay, let's just pause for a sec. What a complete change of pace there. It's it just goes into overdrive there with those breakbeats on the drums and the piano parts sitting wistfully on top of it. And I think we're going into a solo section now. I kind of love the fact that it's so unpredictable, but at the same time, my brain's like, what does this mean? Interesting effects chain on that guitar, actually. It kind of sounds kind of squelchy, but I'm not mad about that. Like it's climbing a staircase to an infinite unknown. And it's excellent arpeggios on the piano here. Nice change of pace from the guitar we had before. Okay, bringing it back to the original motif we had. Smart move. Oh, are we doing some modal stuff here with different scale positions? We're not committing to typical major or minor voicings, and I really dig that. Is this a third drum kit that we've had now? What else are we going to throw at us? I don't know. I kind of love the fact that we're not just sitting with one type of coloration in that rhythm section. It's kind of dope because too often it can be so easy to just kind of laze on that. You know, be a bit lazy, be a bit like, oh, it's enough. But not for Herman Martinez. Definitely not. Nice double tracking of the vocals as well, You know someone's a great singer when they can get both of those takes on either side of the cans and they sound like they're in unison. That's a very difficult thing to do, but we're nailing it here. And some reverse takes now. What galaxy are we in? Shout out to the proficiency though, from an instrumental performance perspective. Like, these are not, like, even if they're just like individual ideas that are even being looped, they've been recorded once and they're being looped, which I doubt this is the case. It's just so impressive that we're managing to give these some sort of purpose and point. Because if you had it by itself, it's like, oh, that's a loop, and that's the power of layering within an arrangement. Is that if you just add the right amount of it, you go on a journey despite things being the same, I'm not sure how he got the reverse takes though, whether that's like a lead guitar that, I don't know, man. Nothing but love for that though, like honestly. See, we've got lyrics here. The glide, pieces from long ago falling in place now. With these lyric reviews, I'm just going to just look over the lyrics and kind of feel them out and see if I get the hang of it, okay? I think that this track, The Glide, is about playing music simply to keep the inner demons at bay, like the thoughts away. It's maybe talking about escapism or something like that, trying to avoid ruminating on things uncomfortably and instead looking through artistic expression for a better future. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's healing being done through that. But that's The Glide anyways. That's my impression of it. With the part in the middle where just things really ramp up, that's me kind of wondering if that is going into a state of flow, just having a heightened experience with it. If that's what we're talking about, that eventually getting into that state of pleasure outside of the boundaries of the traditional experience. But yeah, Secret Identity, track number 2 for today. Fantastic drum tones there, nice punchy sound to them. Nice stereo panning, automation there, or some stereo delay. Give me like an old school Pink Floyd vibe, which when I don't know if you guys can see this, I don't know how big this is. You can see here the person's wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt there with the album cover on it. Nice touch. There's power in those old school recordings. I'm very thankful that we're not sort of straying away from trying sort of different time signatures out, like the 7/8, for example. That's been going on in this first section here. I'm wondering if there's a polyrhythm going on with some of those instruments there, some of them keeping that overall kind of 3/4/4/4 groove there, whilst we kind of stick at, or maybe 2/4. Sort of go between 7/4 and 7/8, if that makes sense at all. I like the fact that we're playing with listeners' expectations there, and I like the fact as well that despite that, the chicanery that's going on there, it nonetheless sounds natural. You know, you got those interesting voicings from the guitar and piano parts occasionally outside of the vocals and during the vocals, which distract you from how sort of unusual that time signature and that overall groove is. Very gentle motif here. Yeah, and I like a very breathy vocal style as well that really suits the gentle tonality of the harmony and the overall sort of musical experience. Stylistically cohesive. Well done so far. Another banger. You know, at this point with what I've heard from Herman, I feel like I'm in safe hands, if that makes sense. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to have our music theory and composition sorted. What I like is the contrast between the spiciness of some of these guitar arpeggios in combination with the sus2 or sus4 chords, the very neutral sounding strumming that's going on in the background. There's use of almost polarization going on here that gently sort of equalizes each other out, balances, you know. An unusual way to find an equilibrium, but we're managing to nail it here. And there's a sweetness without airing those piano parts apart on top. Yeah, fantastic work working back through that vocal melody here on the lead guitar. Great decision here, man. Great decision. And awesome, the development of the additional element in the second half. Oh, dude, it's 101, but it's so effective. We're working with fourths, are we? Fourth intervals? And that bass is so nice and full sounding here, and I love how active the bass line as well is now, you know. It's one thing to sort of, it's one thing to have a track that has a lot of energy and sort of spunkiness to it, but to have that bass line not just roll the root notes and explore around the other parts of the fretboard is excellent. Kind of stars in the sky, right? Sounds like stars in the sky. Kind of reminds me of some of the progressive rock from the 90s. I don't know if you guys have played like Spyro the Dragon, like the PS1 game from like the 90s. Some of this music here, some of these chord progressions and ideas of the bass guitar especially remind me of some of that music. Fantastic music. You know, banger of a soundtrack. Nice, a little bit extra activity here. Oh. Interesting. So we're talking about memories being hidden but still affecting us nonetheless? Nice touch. Great fade out here. So I'm wondering if the panning that I was talking about with those hi-hats or ride cymbals was in fact just reverse takes of it. He loves his reverse takes, doesn't he? Nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. It's interesting to hear it more common than just like one track out of 6. It's nice to see stylistic decisions being kept throughout. Again, like the lyrics are like 8 to 10 lines, but at the same time it's enough just to sort of have that extra bit of context for the music to make more sense than it already does, you know? So I think this one is more gentle, partly because we're talking about, like, again, being in love, you know, wanting to create a future out of that, not being bridled or chained by your past experiences, you know, being open-minded and letting the rest of the world go so that you can focus on what's important. Great themes. Paracosm, track number 3. These are long songs, but I'm not entirely upset about that because I think that if you can continue to retain the interest like organically throughout without having to push it too hard, I think that's totally fine. Great development there. It was nice to have that little, that other 3 beats or whatever just before the next sort of verse stanza, just to add a bit of space to appreciate what's going on outside of the story there. It's nice to have those additional lead layers come in sometimes. The ride cymbal work is really pretty as well and nice and charming. Claps. I wouldn't have expected claps to be honest, but like I'm not mad about it. She makes my ashes into incense, and the music looping within to itself and kind of not sure where to go could possibly represent confusion. I feel like I'm psychoanalyzing, but at the same time, part of music is, well, I mean, the lyric part of these conclusions is typically to try and understand it anyways, you know? So I suppose you kind of have to, right? Especially if you're not given all the information, you have to try and connect the dots, even if there's some dots missing. Interesting tone to the kicks. I'm not sure if I'm a massive fan of it, but it does pierce through the mix really well. I'm liking again that we're not sitting on one drum kit. That drum kit can be so much more than just the support device. It can be a personality for a track, you know. And to keep that still sounding relatively coherent with you know, a lot of the other parts of the mix that are relatively similar, like the guitar tones and such. Again, this is quite a busy composition when you listen to those guitar arpeggios and fingerpicked lines there, and those cascading melodies on the sides. And the drums are relatively simple. I'm liking the fact that we're not sitting on one main motif though, we're working with different things with different sections. I think that's really important, especially when you've already got this kind of prog rockish kind of tone. You may as well fully commit, right? Great work with these natural harmonics as well. They're very, they're beautiful. Wonder what pickup position we used here. I wonder what amp and guitar we used. You know, I always wonder about that. Are people even using amps anymore? Are they using like amp sims? How are people getting these tones? Not that I'm gonna judge like if someone is lesser for using emulations. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Especially with how good they are nowadays, a lot of them. Kind of reminds me a little bit of some Radiohead stuff, to be honest. I suppose maybe it's just the tone of some of the acoustic parts. Is that a compliment? I'm not sure. Okay. Synthy voicey stuff. Breathiness and air, fresh of it's almost mystical, to be honest. This music is incredibly peaceful. You know, like often when you have busy music, it can be a little bit affronting. You know, like when you haven't really got massive amounts of space in it, there's always action and there's always activity within them, and it's kind of refreshing for someone to know how to get the most out of an arrangement or composition without having to just pause. That's a talent. Okay, I get it. We're syncing different ideas from across the composition together now. That's cool. Oh, fade out now. Oh, that's beautiful. Cool choice. Again, I still haven't really acclimatized to the clap. But then part of me is like, would it really have sounded better if you had a traditional snare drum? It's like, maybe not. I realize as well that I haven't really spoken much about the vocal melodies and harmonies within this. Primarily because my brain's like, it's great, so you don't need to. But it's like, no. People need to understand that I still really care about the vocals, because I do. He's a sensational vocalist with solid vocal technique. I like how occasionally he will allow the other instruments to join in with his phrasing and melodically that he does, even if they're also harmonizing on top of it or even below it. And I just love... It's not like there's a whole lot of ornamentation. Like, he's not doing massive vibrato legato runs or anything like that. There's a sense of a statement being made, but at the same time, it's like enough, if that makes sense. I don't think that we needed to add any more sort of vocal parts into it, primarily because, again, of how busy the composition is, and maybe that's an awareness that Herman had when sort of writing and phrasing these, needing to have an instrumental section or an interlude there with a solo section at that in the second third, was just to balance out how intense it was, despite being really charming to listen to. So there weren't lyrics for this one, but basically my understanding of this one was like a paracosm is like an imaginary world or something like that. Like a detailed imaginary world, and like it's something along the lines of, in the chorus, her eyes turn into suns, and it could be explaining and detailing the world that is being related into it. When I look back at like secret identity and like letting go and like accepting a different future, one that's free of the chains and restraints of this one, maybe it is going into that world and sort of elaborating further on it. A lot of this stuff you require more than one listen to it simply to be able to get a crux of the entire parts of it. You know, like part of me wants to like listen solely to the lyrics when I listen through these tracks to understand what the song is about, but also I suppose part of me also wants to that's the only, I suppose, the sadly the only downside is that because there's so much interesting stuff to pay attention to within this music, you are sometimes distracted from you know, like the verse section where you've got all these cool little arpeggios going. You're like, but I want to hear the guitar line or the bass line. I want to have the piano part be the focal point, you know. It's not necessarily criticism because it's totally fine for Herman to want to do this. It's better to get a lot of interesting stuff than far less interesting stuff and be starved. But yeah, my brain was kind of all over the place, I think, when I was listening through Paracosm as well as some of these other ones. Not as a negative, but simply because there's just so much to appreciate. We've got Dutch Tilts, number 11. Track numero 4. 2 minutes. I don't know why I wasn't expecting that. It's almost kind of alien to me to have a track that's just 2 minutes from Herman. It'd be cool to see what they do in his short form factor. What I like, as well as the guitar accompaniment, which provides everything you need harmonically and instrumentally, you have the call and response between the vocals on the sides and in the center, and I just love the fact they're going backwards and forwards. It's kind of like, oh, I'm here now, oh, I'm this now, and it's a really easy way of keeping the listener's attention. Have we just DI'd this? We have DI'd this guitar, haven't we? I mean, it's not a bad thing. Oh, dude, some of this stuff is reminding me of Opeth, man. Some of this stuff is reminding me of Opeth's acoustic albums. There's all these little influences which I can hear, which might not be influences, but if they are, then it's just sort of serendipitous in it. It's not like comparing someone's vocals to Opeth's and their clean albums is a bad thing. It's not an insult. The guy from vocalist from Opeth is phenomenal. It just really works well with the tone of the guitar and those vibratos there. And the interesting, I think part of it is also the progressiveness we have with just not sticking within the same scale and like working with relative majors and minors, and some semitonal sort of chromatic stuff going on as well. It's unexpected and joyous because of that. Nice use of distortion and delay. Great choice there to stray off that key there. Part of me was going, are we gonna resolve to the major or something like that? Nope. We go into a sense of dread and despair because I think this existential crisis that we're having here, we're wondering, have I been or will I be? That kind of stuff. It's obviously not. You're sort of crying out for help at that point. I don't feel like we get an answer, do we? We don't get a satisfactory sort of like conclusion from that, but I don't think we are owed it at the same time, You don't need every song you listen to end nicely. Sometimes it's better if it's uncertain because it makes you think as a listener, which should honestly be the point of most music in my opinion. It should affect the listener in some way. But hey, some people just want to no shade to the people who just want to listen passively at the same time, So I think Dutch Tilts is about someone who has been writing maybe their experiences over the last while, and it's made them to reconsider who they are, where they're going in life. Fire, I'm wondering if it's just them considering burning everything so as to be reborn and not to have to live in the same desolation that they're in at the moment. Pages to fill with mostly silence. That's an interesting line there. It's almost to say nothing much has changed or happened, even though I've been alive for this long. And maybe by burning it, we can have another chance to raise the ground and actually be more proactive this time. Maybe not acting because we are unable to know what to do, but regardless, sometimes there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not going to pretend that I have everything sorted today, but some beautiful nightmare, or some new beautiful nightmare, should I say. Yeah, 5-minute form factor, man. Nice to start with the piano as well.
want to keep the records, a voice everywhere, and every word is meaningless.
Oh. Did he say everyone or everything is meaningless? Because that's getting pretty heavy in the first half of this pseudo hook, or is this a bridge? Where are we going with this?
Hadn't come, but with a cue of things I've tried to say.
Oh, really? Oh, we're doing this. Hang on, I just want to do something really important. Yeah, I've just realized something with my reviews. I've started having the logo up the top, but I realized that it was kind of gross how like there was like a little bit of up there was sticking out. It's the little things, man. It's the little things. I mean, we've got drum and bass beats coming in here. I wasn't expecting that today. I know we had some break beats earlier on, but still at the same time. It's just not what I'd expect from these kind of sort of spaced out, sort of effects-laden guitar parts with the bass here. And the tension, the utmost sort of like angst. It doesn't sound like it's at like 170 BPM, you know? Her curvature is space. What a line, dude. What a line. This is some of the trippiest stuff I've listened to in a while, and I'm not mad, man. Not mad at all. I dig that. I love the personality. I love the effort put in. I love the creativity. Do we have the softness and sweetness of the double-tracked vocals going, whoa? Do we have that because we've got the swishies going on with the guitar, the exorbitant sort of tremolo vibrato stuff? Oh, it is guitar solo time. Alright. Kind of give me a King Crimson vibe, you know what I mean? It hits different. You know, that bass comes in and it's so resonant and sort of like, it's so thick that it should not sit that well with the drums, but somehow the drums sidechain it in a way that makes it more than passable, obviously. My brain's just getting around how you mix and master a track like this in the first place, because I love the sense of dynamic range you have this at the same time. Like, I listen to stuff and people can't compress it so that there's very little difference between the quiet and loud sounds, but the polish and the brightness and this track, but also just the full response you get from the different elements and ingredients within this. It's very impressive production wise. I mean, it's a sharp guitar tone, don't get me wrong, but that's, again, it's fashionable at this point, you know? And I just moved over kind of sort of leads from like the 2010s with the prog stuff. Have a bit of grit in there, you know? It's just driving. The eighth note groove on those kicks there alongside the occasional guitar parts that come in. There's just a sense of pace that is unparalleled at this point in time, you know? It like sounds like a nightmare, I suppose, from the perspective of someone like having that kind of visceral guitar tone there, but piano sort of sounds like we're sort of going in and out of the dream.
All the things I cannot name, they live within the strings. All for you, my little flame. I'm ready to begin.
Great, a descending melody there from the guitar parts. You know, I can't sing that very well because I'm not a singer like Herman is. But I love the fact that these vocal tails, they mirror some of the melodic concepts we've had initially, but at the same time, they become their own sort of instrument, I suppose. On top of the piano, which is nicely panned to this left and right sides, leaving plenty of space in the middle. You know, it's the best place to put that. And the reverb tails on the piano parts. Oh, no. No. No, you didn't. You did not just leave a lack of a resolution at the end. It would have been so cheesy, to be fair, so I'm glad that we didn't. Boom, boom. I'm glad we didn't go up to the... Oh my goodness, my pitch. My pitch is getting better because I thought that was an E and then I played it and it was an E. For real, that's 1 for 1. That has not happened before, so apparently my ear training is getting better. Although don't challenge me on that, I'm not that good yet, obviously. But just the beauty of this album, man, the beauty of this music so far, it's so interesting and it encapsulates your attention and it leaves you wanting more, which is part of why, again, we don't resolve those melodies. I'm wondering if this is him sort of dancing or interacting with his own creativity, the muse, the inspiration for this music. You know, I'm of the night, she's of the lights, dancing to the music coming from her satellites. You know, there's these... It could be a person, but it seems too on the nose for that to be the case. Warping all the world around us to point me on my way home and all the things I cannot name that live within the strings. Like a puppet master or something like that. Is the person of the moon sort of dancing you around or something like that? Are they dancing together? Are they both puppets on strings? I'm not sure. I have so many questions. More questions now than I had before I asked about it. But that's okay. It did sound like there was a sense of tension and it was people sort of like trying to understand each other and feel each other out, but at the same time, we never quite get there. There's a sadness at the end that comes from a lack of resolution and conclusion. A Man from Torrid, track number 6, the final track for today. Well, isn't this the most gorgeous, like unconditionally wonderful song we've had today, at least from an intro perspective? I just love how charming and pleasant it is, you know?
Tongue is ill prepared for the weight of chatter. Mind still races even when the words don't matter.
You know, we've got this wonderful unison between the guitar parts, the bass, and the secondary call and response sort of guitar lines here. It's all in unison. It's all connected. It's been well thought out and well performed. Great theme number 2. Oh yep, parallel minor. Oh, we're going back in for another round. I wasn't expecting that. Again, rolling with that 3/4. No, triplet groove in 4/4 actually, never mind. How many instruments does Herman play, by the way? How many instruments do we have here? Because there's quite a few. Quite a few. It's not easy to play these instruments these well either, you know. There's some tricky fill work we're going on here alongside the cymbal stuff.
Humming in the night as you
Great thing. It's such a textural shift there, and I love the addition of the vocal harmony on top here, just to keep it sounding fresh and invigorating. You know, I wasn't expecting that to come in here. I feel like it would have been a bit too flat if you didn't have that secondary layer in this one. A rare moment of predictability and safety within this music, I suppose. Some beastly, near unfathomable lead tones here. Is that a bass guitar up that high? No, it isn't. Like, did we filter one of those lead lines and have one of them completely remove the bottom end and just like stick them together on two sides of the stereo field? Interesting tone with those drums. You've gotten rid of a lot of the lows out of that snare drum. I mean, I know there aren't a lot to begin with, but still, you know. Again, like, I'm just vibing with it at this point. I've enjoyed my time with these tracks from Herman today. I've got next to no real complaints about it. I'm nodding my head unconsciously to this now. I know it's potentially a boring way to interact with the music that you're listening to, but also, like, screw it, man. It's natural. I'm not even gonna force it. I'm not even going to enforce any semblance of enthusiasm for it. It's just quiet admiration, I suppose, you know? Those lead guitars, man, are stunning as well. The slidey bits going on. Come on, man. Come on. I'm wondering if this track, Man from Torrid, is about someone who cannot cope with the gravity of the conversation that they need to have with people. Maybe being in love is too difficult for them, or just like explaining the love is too difficult for them. So, you know, they're happy to just be there for them, humming along to it quietly, to ignite as like maybe the other person speaks up for them or something like that. Maybe the secret to the success of the interaction is in not maybe speaking too loudly about their feelings. I'm not sure. Let's just, you know, because this is my conclusion of my review of more of Herman Martinez's music. I mean, dude, both albums, if we go to his Bandcamp, because we have the first album that was released in 2015, titled Solopsy Radio. Then we had Secret Doors, Hidden Stairs Season 2, which was released in 2017. And then finally, we had Continuity Errors, which is the album that we've checked out. They had a lot of music that we've checked out today, released on 30th of August 2021. With Ahmed Mahmoud, a producer, engineer, mixing and mastering, Miyagi, archetype, Chase Kasara, engineer. Now, what do we think about this music, though, is the most important thing. And for me personally, what I think about this music, what it tells me, is stories of someone dealing with like love, connections, the inner mind, our sense of self within the world, the inner sort of again the worlds we construct for ourselves and how we understand and rationalize the world. Dealing with our own creativity and trying to find peace with who we are and where we're going, and igniting that passion within us and trying to put it into a format that we can both understand and appreciate, and maybe even share with people. Those are a few of the things that I got from these tracks today. Ultimately, the stories were interesting and well told. The poetry within the lyrics was impressive and beautiful and very creative, and I love the vocals as well. We have someone that not only can write interesting lyrics and tell stories, but also a sensational vocalist with phenomenal vocal technique, who just was comfortable within their range, and their head voice sounded nice too, which is a rare thing. You know, it's not always easy to find someone who's got a great head voice. Sometimes you just don't have the strength there, which is why you should get music lessons, which is something I keep meaning to do, because I want to sing. I mean, if I was half as good as Herman, I'd be happy, right? Again, there were bits of ornamentation and classy little melodic phrasing passages, descending and, you know, descending sort of scale shapes and everything like that worked well with the themes of the music present. At the same time, I think Herman was very dedicated to telling the stories in a way that made sense with the music and also to themselves personally. It was a very authentic and personable and intimate experience with this music, and I think there was no sleeping on it. The harmonies and the melodies there, the way we communicated with the audience and the listener was absolutely sublime and unparalleled. And I love it to pieces. The structure of these tracks, there was some sort of more progressive stuff going on. A lot of the time we had 3 sections. We had the intro, and then we had like an instrumental section, and then the outro. And I think that works really well because, you know, you don't need to over-egg the pudding with music production and composition, all that kind of stuff like that. If you have clear expectations that you can set with the listener, you can basically get away with whatever you want as long as you manage to stick enough in there to keep them engaged. And while, you know, we went through all these different time signatures like 7/8 and 3/4 and triplet 4/4s and all this stuff, all these different grooves and little polyrhythms and stuff like that, and maybe some polymeter stuff going on in there as well. Ultimately, no matter what Herman threw at me personally, I could understand and make sense of it. And while I remember saying, what is this and where are we going? It wasn't because it was confusing from a sense of a musical perspective. It was simply that thematically and like instrumentally, I suppose, from like a motif standpoint, I just never knew what we're going to get next. And that's what makes it so exciting. You know, when you couple that with the instrumental proficiency on display here from the guitar, the bass, the drum parts, the piano parts, all this incredible stuff when combined with the vocal harmonies and the ideas here, the reverse takes, bits of foley we had occasionally, it was absolutely stunning. It was a really profound music performance there from someone who clearly cares about their music and cares about putting their best foot forward and doing what they need to in order to get the sound, quote unquote, that they want. And there was nothing here to insinuate or suggest that we were anything less than I think this is something that Herman could be proud of. I don't think there was a single note out of place the entire time I listened to this. And when you consider how many notes there were, like, wow. Dude, wow, there is not a weak track, and I have got nothing but praise for the work put into this. I don't know enough of what could be better than this to be able to say, yo, we could have improved that or done that differently. At the same time, when I listen to what we've got here today from Herman, I think this is clearly a musician who has a fundamental understanding of music theory and composition, is not afraid to get messy with it and throw some interesting textures and semitonal bits and work with parallel majors and minors and work outside the key shapes and scale shapes and everything like that. We'll use some different modulations, some funky scales with like natural sixths as opposed to minor sixes and stuff like that, or flat sixes, where we're taking risks, but they more often than not sort of work out. I suppose, if anything, I think it's that I don't know Herman well enough to really gauge whether it is accurate to what the true identity of the music actually is, which is such a weak, it's not even constructive, it's just a purely subjective thing. I don't know him well enough as a person or his own story to understand if this is real or if this is something he's painting in his own sort of like universe creatively. It's definitely a unique experience though, and I would recommend anybody to listen through the entirety of like Continuity Errors or any of the other albums from start to finish and show Herman some support via his Bandcamp, okay? Finally, the production, recording, mixing, mastering was just it. It was just it. Don't change a thing. It's beautiful. Again, the closest I got was to where we had some like clean guitar parts and I could hear that it was DI'd, and I was like, could we potentially have mic'd that? But at the same time, having that organic sort of like raw sort of texture to it can kind of be more sort of humbling and make it a bit nicer to listen to. It's like, oh, we are still human. We're not just a friggin' music god who can throw these different music instruments together and create something truly spectacular. We have a little bit of a thinner tone with this DI part. And you can be like gentle and forgiving of it for not having a fuller texture there in some of those bits. But even then, I'm picking at extremely minuscule tiny straws here, because that's just me being anal for the sake of needing to be constructive. I don't want to sound like I'm sort of frothing over someone, because it almost sounds like as a reviewer I'm doing it simply for the sake of being positive. I'm not. The production was spectacular. The EQing, effects changes on the various instruments, stereo panning of them, like, was absolutely phenomenal, and I don't know what he could have done to improve it. Maybe that's just my limit as a reviewer, or maybe it's simply it is enough. Maybe it's just enough. That's another consideration too. The compression and limiting was nice and loud without pumping. Don't change a thing about this album. I really hope that Herman Martinez continues to make more incredible music in future, and I wish him the best of luck in his musical endeavors. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching this review of more of Herman Martinez's various tracks, more music. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go check out his various social medias and his Bandcamp page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.